A man is crushed by a forklift and wakes up with a mind overflowing with fractals. Another nearly dies in a swimming pool, then sits at a piano and plays a masterpiece he's never learned. Some gain perfect memory, others speak new languages, or see the world in pure mathematics. What triggers the human mind to awaken unprecedented powers after a disaster? Let's uncover 20 people who gained real superpowers after an accident. In the mid-2000s, Ken Walters suffered a serious workplace accident in which a forklift pinned him against a wall, causing long-term disability and eventually confining him to a wheelchair. Later, he experienced a mild stroke, which he says further changed his cognitive abilities, particularly the way he visualized forms, patterns, and colors. After these injuries, Walters reported developing an overwhelming drive to create intricate digital art, often working with fractal-like patterns, surreal layered imagery, and mathematically influenced structures. Walters has repeatedly described the creative flood that followed his stroke as something he had never experienced before, claiming that visual ideas began appearing spontaneously, compelling him to create daily. His work has appeared in various online exhibitions and independent digital art communities, where he is often described as an outsider digital artist, whose abilities emerged only after he sustained an injury. Where are you from? Do you have any stories of similar supernatural powers where you live? Share your stories. In 2006, at age 39, Amato dove into the shallow end of a swimming pool and struck his head, suffering a severe concussion, memory problems, and partial hearing loss. Just days after the accident, he sat down at a friend's piano, despite never having formal training, and suddenly played an original, complex composition. Amato later explained in interviews that he began seeing music as flowing black and white squares in his mind, which guided his hands. Neurologists and psychologists have identified this as a form of visual spatial musical processing, triggered by his injury. Although his new ability came with persistent headaches, memory issues, and hearing damage, Amato has continued composing and performing, becoming a prominent example of how brain trauma can unexpectedly unlock remarkable abilities. Next, see what happens when an accident reshapes a man who would unknowingly invent the foundations of cinema. Eadweard Muybridge is best known as a photography innovator, whose motion study experiments laid the foundations for modern cinema. But an important turning point in his life came after a serious stagecoach accident in 1860. Muybridge was a bookseller living in the United States. While traveling through Texas, his stagecoach crashed violently, throwing him from the vehicle and causing a severe head injury. He spent months recovering, with reports describing long-term symptoms such as memory problems, personality changes, vision disturbances, and altered behavior. After recuperating, Muybridge abandoned bookselling and became intensely drawn to photography, rapidly developing exceptional technical skill and artistic ambition. Over the next 2 decades, he revolutionized the field by inventing high-speed shutter systems, capturing sequences of humans and animals in motion, and ultimately creating the zoopraxiscope, an early device that projected moving images and directly anticipated the motion picture camera. But not every transformation leads to world-changing inventions. Some awakened talents no one saw coming. Next. Scott Mele, a man from Wilmington, North Carolina, survived a severe car crash in 2015 that left him with a traumatic brain injury and psychological difficulties, and a sense of detachment from his former self. Months after the accident, he unexpectedly developed a strong urge to paint, despite having no prior interest or training, and soon discovered that he had genuine artistic ability. His story has been featured in several news outlets, which describe his case as a rare example of acquired savant syndrome, a condition in which exceptional skills appear after brain injury, though no scientific studies have formally verified this diagnosis. Today, Mele continues to work as an artist and credits painting with giving him a renewed sense of purpose, even as the neurological basis of his newfound talent remains uncertain. And now, in one rare case, a childhood accident may have created a sporting legend with almost superhuman precision. Moe Norman was a Canadian professional golfer, celebrated for his uncanny ball-striking accuracy, repeatable swing mechanics, and almost machine-like consistency. Norman suffered a serious accident as a young boy, after which he became noticeably withdrawn, socially anxious, and highly repetitive in his behavior, traits that later led many observers to speculate that he may have lived with an undiagnosed form of autism or post-traumatic neurological change. Whatever the cause, Norman developed an extraordinary, hit tens of thousands of balls alone, and refined a single plane swing so consistent that elite players like Tiger Woods and Vijay Singh praised him as one of the greatest ball strikers in history. His shots were famously straight, pure, and endlessly repeatable, and his precision, along with his eccentric speech patterns, rituals, and discomfort in crowds, made him a cult figure and a subject of fascination in golf journalism and documentaries, such as Moe Norman, the King of Swing. Did you like this video? Don't just stop at the like button. If you're watching on your phone, hit that hype too. It helps the channel out, and I'm excited to continue bringing you more awesome content. Next, see a person gain abilities that completely rewrite how they see reality itself. In 2002, Jason Padgett was violently attacked outside a karaoke bar in Tacoma, Washington, suffering a severe concussion that permanently changed how he perceived the world. Soon after the assault, Padgett began seeing everything as geometric patterns, light rays, motion, and even everyday objects appeared to him as grids and fractal structures. He started drawing these forms by hand, producing mathematically precise fractals despite having no formal mathematical training beforehand. Neurologists later confirmed that the injury triggered unusual activity in regions of the brain linked to mathematical reasoning and visual processing, giving him a rare form of visual synesthesia, where mathematical concepts appear as vivid geometric imagery. Today, Padgett creates intricate fractal art, studies mathematics formally, and shares his story worldwide as a striking example of how brain trauma can unlock latent cognitive potential. Born in 1958, in Colorado, Alonzo Clemons suffered a severe brain injury as a toddler after a fall, leaving him with significant developmental disabilities and limited intellectual functioning. Yet from childhood, he displayed an extraordinary intuitive gift for shaping animals out of clay or any material he could find. Despite never receiving formal training and being unable to read or write, he can create anatomically accurate, expressive animal sculptures, often within minutes, after only briefly seeing an animal or photograph, a hallmark of prodigious savant syndrome. Over the years, his work gained public attention. He was featured in the media, exhibited in galleries, and recognized globally as one of the world's notable savant sculptors. Some of his large works, as life-size horse sculptures, have been sold. There is a record of a sale of a sculpture for $45,000. Rory Curtis, a former British footballer, survived a serious van crash in 2012 that left him with multiple injuries, after which he was placed in an induced coma for 6 days. When he woke, he briefly surprised hospital staff and his family by speaking fluent French, a language he had only studied at school and never mastered. He also experienced temporary identity confusion, at one point believing he was actor Matthew McConaughey, an effect doctors described as a rare but possible outcome of traumatic brain injury. These unusual symptoms faded as his memory and sense of self returned, and there is no medical evidence supporting claims of ancestral memory or inherited knowledge. Curtis's case remains an unusual example of how brain trauma can temporarily disrupt language, memory, and identity, but the more sensational explanations often attached to his story are not supported by science. If you woke up from an accident speaking a language you barely knew before, would you believe it was a real ability unlocked by your brain? Let me know if you think yes, like me. On August 17, 1979, when Orlando Serrell was 10 years old, he was struck on the left side of the head by a baseball during a game. He briefly lost consciousness, continued playing, and never received medical treatment. After suffering headaches for months, he eventually recovered, only to discover he could instantly determine the day of the week for any date after his accident, and recall in remarkable detail what he did, where he was, and even what the weather was on those days. For example, if you told him a date like the 4th of May 1880, he could instantly tell you what day of the week it was. His transformation is documented biography, and in neuroscience discussions of acquired savant syndrome, where he is repeatedly referenced as a classic case of a normal individual who gained exceptional abilities after a single head injury. In 1994, while using a public payphone, Dr. Tony Cicoria, an American orthopedic surgeon, was struck by lightning, thrown backward, and briefly left without a heartbeat until a bystander resuscitated him. Though he suffered burns, memory problems, and mental sluggishness, medical scans showed no major abnormalities. Yet within days, Cicoria developed an intense and unprecedented craving for classical piano music, despite having no meaningful musical background. As he listened obsessively, he soon began hearing original melodies in his mind and felt compelled to play and compose, eventually producing his first major work, Lightning Sonata, which he said came to him in vivid dreams and mental soundscapes. Over the following years, Cicoria taught himself piano, began performing publicly, and released a CD titled Notes from an Accidental Pianist and Composer. His transformation was documented in Oliver Sacks's book Musicophilia, as well as in interviews with Vice, NPR, and other outlets, all of which describe him as a real-life example of a trauma-induced creative awakening or acquired savant-like phenomenon. The next man's transformation came with a flood of creativity so overwhelming that it took over his entire life. John Sarkin is an American outsider artist whose extraordinary creative transformation began after a severe medical emergency in 1989, when he was a practicing chiropractor with no artistic aspirations. Sarkin first developed tinnitus after a golf outing and underwent surgery to alleviate it, but he had an incident during treatment, leaving him with partial deafness, double vision, loss of fine motor control, difficulty speaking, and major shifts in personality and cognition. After that, Sarkin found himself overwhelmed by a compulsive drive to draw and paint. He described images, words, and ideas flooding his mind, leading him to spend hours creating dense, frenetic artworks filled with text fragments, pop culture references, overlapping faces, and surreal imagery. Sarkin eventually left his chiropractic practice and became a full-time artist. Today, his work is internationally exhibited and collected, and his case is frequently referenced by neuroscientists and psychologists studying how trauma can radically reorganize the brain's pathways for creativity, perception, and identity. Another man experienced an even more dramatic artistic eruption after an accident inside his brain. Tommy McHugh was a British builder with no prior artistic background, who, at age 51, experienced a dramatic and life-altering explosion of creativity after suffering a massive brain hemorrhage in which 2 blood vessels burst on opposite sides of his brain. After collapsing and spending about a week in a coma, he awoke to find his personality and abilities profoundly changed. He became intensely compelled to paint, sculpt, and write poetry, often working obsessively for many hours a day, describing a non-stop flow of images and rhymes in his mind. McHugh later exhibited his work publicly, produced thousands of paintings and sculptures until his death in 2012, and frequently described the post-hemorrhage period as a magnificent adventure, making his story a striking illustration of how brain injury can unexpectedly unmask extraordinary creative potential. Leigh Erceg, a former Colorado rancher, suffered a severe fall into a ravine in 2009 that caused significant brain and spinal injuries and left her with profound memory loss, unable to recall her earlier life or recognize family and friends. Following the accident, she unexpectedly developed remarkable new abilities in art, poetry, and mathematical thinking, along with synesthesia, experiencing colors when hearing sounds, leading doctors to describe her condition as a rare case of acquired savant syndrome. Media reports highlight that she became intensely creative and began producing abstract, math-influenced artwork, though claims about advanced physics abilities, Picasso-like style, or precise statistics on the rarity of her condition are unverified. Ben McMahon, a young man from Melbourne, was seriously injured in a car accident and spent more than a week in a coma. When he regained consciousness, he surprised his family and medical staff by speaking fluent Mandarin, a language he had previously only studied at school at a basic level. Media reports say that his English initially seemed difficult for him to access, though he regained it soon afterward, and his Chinese proficiency remained far stronger than before the accident. Ben later used his improved Mandarin skills to study in Shanghai and to appear on Chinese-language television programs, including hosting roles and participation in the show If You Are the One. Daniel Tammet is a British author and autistic savant known for his unusual form of synesthesia, through which he experiences numbers as distinct shapes, colors, and textures, allowing him to perform remarkable mental calculations. He gained international attention in 2004 when he recited pi to 22,514 digits, a feat widely documented in the media, and he is also recognized as a talented polyglot who has learned multiple languages, including acquiring conversational Icelandic in a week for a television program. Tammet describes his perception of numbers and languages in detail in his memoirs, though elements such as every number up to 10,000 having a unique visual form or early epileptic seizures reshaping his brain come from his personal accounts rather than verified scientific conclusions. His documented synesthesia and exceptional memory abilities, however, make him one of the most well-known contemporary figures associated with savant syndrome. The next man's abilities are on an entirely different level, so extraordinary that they inspired a Hollywood icon. Kim Peek, born in 1951, was the real-life inspiration for the character Raymond Babbitt in the film Rain Man and is known as one of the most extraordinary savants ever documented. He was born with a genesis of the corpus callosum, meaning the major connection between the brain's hemispheres was missing, as well as other structural abnormalities, which likely contributed to his unusual cognitive profile. Despite significant developmental challenges and limited motor and reasoning skills, Peek possessed remarkable memory abilities. He reportedly memorized thousands of books, could recall detailed facts across subjects like history and geography, and was known for reading 2 pages at once, one with each eye. Peek's life illustrated both the immense potential and the profound challenges associated with atypical brain development, making him an important figure in the study of memory and neurodiversity. James Wannerton is a British man, known for experiencing lexical gustatory synesthesia, a rare neurological condition in which hearing, reading, or thinking of words automatically triggers vivid taste sensations. Wannerton has reported having these associations since early childhood, not as the result of an injury, and describes each word as evoking a specific flavor, texture, and even temperature. His condition has led him to create a well-known taste map of London Underground stations, each name corresponding to a distinct taste. While scientists believe this form of synesthesia may result from unusual neural connectivity between language processing and taste-related areas of the brain, the exact mechanism remains under study. Wannerton has collaborated with researchers to help better understand how the brain links sensory and linguistic information, making his case one of the most widely documented examples of this rare form of synesthesia. Florence and Catherine Lyman, often called the Rainman Twins, are identical twin sisters from New Jersey who have been featured in documentaries and media for their unusual savant-like abilities. They are described as having exceptional calendrical skills, such as naming the day of the week for many dates, and unusually strong recall for personal events, music trivia, and daily details from their lives. The twins are autistic, have remarkable memory strengths, and were introduced to the public with the help of journalist Dave Wagner, who helped share their story and their unique talents with a wider audience. Nikolai Kryaglyachenko, a 12-year-old boy from Russia, gained international attention in 2014 after claiming that metal objects began sticking to his skin following an electric shock from a faulty lamppost. According to reports, coins and cutlery allegedly adhered to his body the day after the accident, leading some media outlets to label him a human magnet. Skeptical analysis suggests the phenomenon is far more likely due to normal skin adhesion, slight body tilt, sweat, or surface friction rather than true magnetism. As a result, Nikolai's case remains an unconfirmed media curiosity rather than a documented scientific anomaly. Gilles Tréhin, born in 1972, is a French autistic artist known for creating Erville, an elaborate fictional city he has developed since his adolescence. Although entirely imaginary, Erville is depicted with extraordinary detail, including its own geography, architecture, history, and a fictional population of around 12 million inhabitants. Tréhin began drawing at a young age, and later dedicated himself to illustrating Erville through hundreds of meticulously crafted sketches, many of which are published in his book Erville. His project demonstrates remarkable creativity and internal logic, but the city exists only in his imagination and artworks, not in the real world. Nonetheless, Tréhin's work is widely recognized as a fascinating example of artistic vision and the complex creative abilities sometimes seen in autistic savants. We have seen 22 people whose lives changed in an instant. Some gained new artistic abilities. Others developed unusual memory, language skills, or ways of seeing the world that even science is still working to understand. These moments did not give them supernatural powers, but they did reveal how unpredictable and adaptable the human brain can be. Across different countries, ages, and backgrounds, each person experienced a life event that forced their mind to rebuild itself. In that process, hidden strengths and rare abilities appeared. Their lives remind us that the brain is not a fixed machine. It is always changing, learning, and responding to what happens around us. Whose power do you find most amazing? Do you feel you have any superpowers? Share them with us, and don't forget to ring the bell, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. And if you want to discover interesting things in the world of sports, watch my video about the cheating moments of athletes witnessed by millions, where the most sophisticated conspiracies are revealed. Click on the card displayed on the screen now. Enjoy the video. Thanks for being with us. Leave a comment, like to show your support, and remember to hit that subscribe button for more exciting videos. See you next time.